All right, so to do that, the first thing we need to do is we need to extend our session view model to add a property that is selected. Public bool is selected. So it's the same thing we did previously in the class. So I'm going to go ahead and add another column. And I'll do html.hidden_for item ID. So do a hidden field for the ID, and then HTML checkbox for item.isSelected. But that doesn't work because we need it to be order index. So we're going to drop the for each loop and instead replace it with a for loop into I equals 0. I is less than a model dot count length I plus plus. That should be count. And then I'm going to edit my model up here because I want that count property, and it gets hidden by IEnumerable because IEnumerable is a dynamically enumerable collection. Basically, you can call for each on it, and then it just keeps giving you items until it's done. Well, I want something more concrete. So I'm passing in a list. I know I'm passing in a list, so I'm going to change it from IEnumerable to list. And now count is a real boy. So then to fix the code I just broke, since I got rid of item, I'll say var item equals model I. And now item is also a real boy. So the rest of that code will continue to work. But this first part, which is where I need my indexing, I'll change that. And this will now become x of I. Now you may look at that and go, what's x? Remember, x is our model being passed into the HTML output. So x itself is a list of session view model. And for the rest of these, we basically ignore the model item and we use the item coming from the loop, so that individual item in there. We need this indexer so that way when we do the post back will know this is item 0 in the collection, this is item 1 in the collection, this is item 2 in the collection, to ensure that we get them back in order and they're unique. The for each doesn't give us that. So now we have a checkbox. F6. Not that. F5. Control F5. It doesn't like that I converted it to a list, so it's not able to do the display name for.
Why did yours have red lines?
Why did it or did not?
Why doesn't it?
Because, does yours have a red line?
Yeah.
Oh. What does yours say? What's your squiggle say? What's your red line say?
Type of argument for method cannot be inferred from the usage.
Type of the argument for method, blah, 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 cannot be inferred from the. I get that same error. Try here.
But yours didn't have the red lines in the script. You have it turned off or something.
Nope. My designer did not detect it at compile time. Yours did. Yours is better than mine. I don't know. Sometimes the Razor piece, when it does the syntax checking, sometimes it catches it, sometimes it doesn't. That's honestly the best answer I can give you. So because of that, I'm going to go ahead and just throw this out, and we're just going to hand code these. It's not the end of the world. We could do a bunch of casting and fancy stuff to make it all work, and it's not worth it. The names aren't going to change, and if they do, you're probably going to have to go in and explicitly type them in anyway. You could go into your models and put in fancy attributes and do it all that way too. That's another option, but again, what's the point? So, I guess I shouldn't say that. There is a point, but for the complexity of this project, it's not. All right, so now we have that. We can check our boxes. We don't have a submit button, but we'll get there. Let's view our source real fast just to make sure we've got what we want. Okay, so that bracket 0.isSelected, that's what I want to see for my names. That ensures that it's being indexed properly. Alright, so if we jump back, a few things I want to get rid of. I don't need this last column with the edit, delete, details view. Details we might be able to use, but we can always redo that. I don't need this create at the top. That's just noise from the template. So that streamlines it a little bit more. Okay. So now what we do need at the bottom is a submit button. And the other thing we need is a HTML.begin form. So using statement, HTML.begin form, and we're going to post back to index. Actually, we'll just leave it blank. And that should be down here. So again, I just did using HTML.begin form. That creates my form tags, curly brackets, and I wrap that entire table inside of those form tags. And then I added a submit button to the bottom. Also included in that using statement block, because I want the form tags around the button. And all that's doing for me is it's creating an HTML form that'll post back, capturing the checkboxes and the submit button. So that piece is in place. Registration controller, zoom out. So now I need to create a new action. And I'm actually going to go ahead and do it async task action. Action result. And this will be index, and it's going to get a list of session view model. This will be my HTTP post action. So get selected sessions, save to user sessions, redirect to list sessions. So I'm going to go ahead and use a lambda expression on this collection to pull out the ones that are selected. So var selected sessions equals sessions, which is the data coming from my form, where x dot x, or x, where x is selected. So x is one of the sessions in the list. Give me back only the sessions that are selected. Because those are the only ones I care about, right? Those are the ones that they're registering for. Forgot to get the user. So now I'm going to do using project DB context. Set up my context. So then I need to get my user DTO. We'll call it logged in user again. Context.users, then we'll do first or default. Row.username equals user.identity.name. If logged in user is not equal null, right? I have a user. Then I'm going to say context.user sessions .add. I'm going to create a new user session object, and this is going to take session ID, which will be our session ID, which I'll come back to, and then the user ID, which is loggedinuser.id. Alright, so I'm missing a step in here, but I want to kind of circle back. So get the selected sessions, create my context, get my user, right? So I know who the user is that I'm signing up or registering. Now, if the user is not equal null, I actually need to put one more step in here. I need to loop through those sessions that are selected. So looping through those sessions, I then add them. For each session view model, so svm.id So I'm basically creating a user session object each time, putting the session ID in there and the user ID in.
Don't you want to loop through selected sessions instead of just sessions?
Yes. Thank you. So now the other option is, since we have to loop, well, no, that's okay. When you get into performance factors, if you figure you have to loop anyway, you're looping through each item at the top when you do the where. So you can loop through all of them here and then decide at that point if you loop through all sessions whether it's selected or not. So that makes it easier to read doing it this way. The other way is more efficient. So that's kind of something that you have to test as you get into larger scale. If you've got hundreds of thousands of sessions that you're registering, maybe it makes sense to go the other way. The other thing we do want to test for, though, before we get here is say if context.usersessions.any. So I'm going to call this SDTO just for clarity. So this is my session DTO. And I'm looking for any session DTO where the user ID equals loggedinuser.id and SDTO.sessionID equals session view model ID. So what I'm looking for is duplicate registrations. If the user has already signed up for that session, we want to skip it. We don't want to add it again. So right now this is saying if there are sessions that already exist, add them again. Right? It falls into that block. So I'm going to flip this with a inverse. or a not.
Shouldn't those be double equals?
Yeah. What time is it? It's after 8 o'clock. Give me a break. Or am I making sure that you're paying attention?
That's recovery.
Thank you. Alright, so I'm basically making sure that they haven't already signed up for that session. So if they haven't, then I add the session. And then the final step is once we loop through all of them, then we call context.saveChanges. And I'm using the async method with an await. Now this is an async model within .NET 4. And it's only supported in certain contexts, and it kind of, the idea here is that if I'm making a call to the database, I don't want to tie up a thread waiting for the database to respond. So what happens is that when that save changes gets called, it gets called, and it's actually called, and an event listener is set to listen for that response back from the SQL server that says yes. While it's waiting, it parks the thread. And it actually parks it in such a way that the web server can say, all right, I put this in memory over here. I'm waiting for a response back. I'm going to go ahead and take another request. So it actually improves scalability of your application by allowing IIS to say, go ahead, make your database call. If it takes a millisecond, I'll pick it back up. If it takes 5 seconds, well, that's 5 seconds of requests that the web server could be taking. Then when it comes back, it picks up where it left off, reestablishes the state, and then continues executing. And you can have multiples of these awaits happening throughout your application. In fact, one change we can make is that some of these methods, like first or default, they come along with an async method. Any also has an async method. And they all have to be accompanied by an await. And this gets a little funky because you got to wrap it in parentheses in order to do the inverse. And there's a namespace that you have to include, which is using system.data.entity. Oh, because we're not done. Okay. So think of it this way. When we call this first or default, it'll go out to the database, say, give me that user, and then it parks the thread waiting for the database to send back that row. Again, maybe milliseconds, maybe seconds, who knows. Then when we say any, same idea. It'll park that thread and wait for a response. So if the SQL server is getting highly overloaded and it takes a while, we're not wasting web server threads on that response. And then when we finally get to the point of saving those changes, those commits back to the database happen asynchronously as well. This is similar but different than multi-threading your application. This has more to do with allowing your app to remain responsive and not locking up threads. Where multi-threaded is you're actually running or spinning up multiple threads to do an action in parallel, multiple things at the same time. This indirectly allows that to happen, but it's more about releasing threads to go do something else. So this is actually a better paradigm for programming. I just kind of hit it here just so you're familiar with it. I'm not expecting to see this, but if you want to tackle or dabble with it, feel free to. This is something just within the last year and a half I've really started to play with, and I enjoy using it, and it makes sense, and you actually can run into some interesting headaches at the same time, depending on it. You'll see it with I/O to the disk, so writing or reading from the file system itself. There's a lot of async methods. Basically anything that requires unmanaged resources that may be time intensive, you'll see these async methods. There's a whole ton of MSDN videos that cover this concept, so it's a neat concept to read up on. All right, so we save our changes. We save. I'm going to do an else here. And this is if we can't find the user that's logged in, then we'll say model state.add model error, and we'll say logged in user is not found, unable to save. We shouldn't get there, but we could. And then we'll return the view, and that'll give us a little error exception box. So then the last step is to redirect to the list of sessions. So to do that, I'll do redirect to action. And I'll make a action called registered sessions. So I'm going to actually have to make that action now. So that'll cause that redirect. So let's just quick and dirty do that. So public, we can do another async just as an example. Task, action result, registered sessions. All right. We'll get logged in user ID, get selected sessions. No, I'm sorry. Get sessions assigned to user from user session. Get just those sessions. Build session view model. List sessions. So I'm just going to build a big project DB context for all of this. I'm missing a curly bracket there. Nope. Okay. Oh, I'm missing my parentheses here. Whenever Visual Studio starts formatting your code funky, that usually means you missed something. So before you get too far, if you drop a curly bracket and everything shifts one way or the other and you don't expect it to, then you probably missed something up higher. So you need to go back and make sure you got all your parentheses in check and everything like that. And that's what happened here. I forgot my parentheses. I put a curly bracket and then all of a sudden everything shifted out. And I'm like, that's not right. All right, so get user login. So we'll do int user ID, because that's all I really need, equals context.users dot where x, which is my row, x dot username equals user dot identity dot name. I'm going to chain these together. Dot select x ID dot first or default async. Put my await up here. So what I'm doing is I'm saying, from the context users, only grab the user that is my logged in user. From that, only select the ID, and then just give me back that ID value as an integer. I don't need a collection of integers. I don't need all of the user's integers or IDs, and I don't need all the data about that user. That's too much data to get back. I just need the ID. Yes?
Why doesn't it offer the option for first or default async?
Because you need the using statement at the top, which is system.data.entity. So go up to the top of your file and add a using statement. Did you add it?
What's the statement?
System dot, it's using, so put using system.data.entity. So now we'll say context.usersessions.where. And here, what we're selecting, what I really want back are all the sessions assigned to that user. So now user ID is the one I got in the previous, and then I'm selecting those. Now what I want here is the session IDs. Because I only need the collection or list of session IDs for the sessions that I signed up for. Now this is an optimization trick I'm going to show you. So this would be an int array of selected sessions, we'll call it. So I'm grabbing just that array of session IDs, the sessions that the user has registered for. Now, var sessions equals context.sessions where, now this is the optimization. So this is my row. Do you guys know what an in conditional is in SQL? Okay, it looks like this. It would look something like, so what we're trying to do here is select all from sessions where ID is in, and then you would have those session IDs. All right, that's the query I want it to generate. To do that, you have to do something very funky with the way that you build your expression. It's intuitive to me now, but it was very counterintuitive at the time. What I wanted to do was I wanted to say what I said in SQL. And what I said in SQL was where the row dot ID equals, and then I wanted to list each one of those numbers. Well, there's no way to do that. So the best I could do at the time was I could do a for loop, or a for each loop, int session ID in selected sessions. I know I need two equal signs. But what that generated for me was whatever the size of selected sessions was, n, right? Let's play that little notation game, n. Then it would do n queries out to the database. So if there was one session, it would do one query. If there was two sessions, it would do two queries. If I signed up for 30 sessions, maybe it was across multiple days, then I had to do 30 separate selects in order to get all of that back. And that's not what I want, right? When I do it this way, I say, give me back all 30 based on their IDs. And I went back and forth and up and down, and I kept trying to figure out how do I get that to work. The way it works is that you don't write it like SQL. You don't need a for each. You just need an array of values as integers or whatever your data type is. The data type has to match. Step one. Step two is you're using, it needs to be an array that works the best, but you need something that has a method that checks for whether the array contains a value. So what we end up doing is we say selected sessions contains row.id. Now to me, this statement is not this statement, right? But linked to entities, the entity framework doesn't take this verbatim and just do it. It actually interprets this and converts it into SQL, and it converts it into that SQL. Now the reason I bring it up and the reason I show it to you is because I had a case where I was doing this step on database A, this step on database B, and I needed this here. But then I had to do this step. It wasn't a place where I had two tables joined together. They were in completely different databases. But I had to make it so that I could do an in. Otherwise, I was making multiple calls against that database, and database B or database A was a much slower database. So for me to do 30 or 100 or 5,000 of those calls didn't make sense. It was almost cheaper for me to dump the entire table into memory and do it that way. But I didn't need that much data either. So doing it this way generates this in statement and gives you back just what you need. All right, so then the last step here you get the gist. I'm not going to go through all of it. Oh, forgot to close my using statement. Get rid of one of those. There we go. So if you were following along the index postback, I forgot the word return on the redirect to action. So if we refresh, so let's start out by, let's go to registered sessions. Oh, it doesn't have a view. Add a view. List of session view model. If you ever run into this error, operation cannot be completed because the DB context has been disposed. that's because you returned an iQueryable or a DB set to the view and not a list. So the way to fix this is actually very easy. You go back into your controller, and you probably have something like this, where you have a select, and you're selecting something. Maybe it's view models, and you think you're loading a list into here, which is what I did. In fact, I'm loading an iQueryable into there, and then I'm returning it down here. So what I want is a list. So at the last statement, I just do toList, and I can actually do toList async. I'll await that, rebuild, refresh. And I have no registered sessions because I haven't signed up. I just wanted to show that. So if I back that out now, come in here, check 2 boxes, hit Save Changes, cross my fingers. Which means an error occurred. So the reason this is happening is that I'm getting sent back to the view. When I go back to the view, I'm looking for a model, and I don't have one. My model is null. I know that from experience. So what probably happened is I ended up here for some reason. So let me go back here real fast. We'll say if model is null, well, let's just do it this way. This isn't the right way to do it, it's just the 830 way to do it. Oh. Let's see what's wrong. I'm not logged in. So what I really need to do is put an authorize attribute up there. What I should have done in the first place, because you can't register until you log in. So now we'll select those, hit Save Changes, and we'll register. Because I didn't populate those in my view model. Yes. I went ahead and let it build them out automatically. Technically, they shouldn't be there. None of this should be there. This is the 830 version. So really, it should look just like this. Now, in theory, and if you paid attention to how the demo works, this page actually goes out and fetches all of the sessions that I'm currently subscribed or registered for, and populates the checkboxes as is selected, so that I know which ones I've already signed up for by looking at this screen, and then by unchecking them and saving them, it actually unsubscribes or removes me from that session. So it's all managed by this single screen instead of having a list versus edit mode. So user.identity.name is the big piece in order to get that user ID to be able to set it. You use that from saving them to retrieving them. And then that retrieval process is about getting that user, querying user sessions by that user ID, getting those session IDs, and then the final piece is then pulling those session names and session data out from there. If I hadn't blown an hour trying to get my context working, I would have shown you how you can actually build joins using the entity framework between your objects, so you don't even have to do this work. You can actually say user.sessions, and it would give you back the sessions that are selected.
Can we do that next week?
We can do it next week. All right.
Are you gonna upload these videos as of tomorrow?
Am I gonna upload these videos? No. Well, I gotta edit the one out. So. Yeah, I will try to. Since they're probably all about 40 to 50 minutes apiece, it may take more than tonight to get them all encoded. So I will try to get them up. I'll send an email out once I get them up. Okay. All right. Sorry that I actually used my 3 hours.
I see the registration session.
What do you want to see?
I see the register sessions at the very bottom.
Yep. You want this one, or you want the HTTP post?
Register session.
Oh, this one. I'm sorry. That part.
What's the big deal? It was like